Nikes. Nikes opens the album with a sharp, slippery feeling that makes you pay attention right away. Frank Ocean uses layered voices and a warped mix to make the track feel unstable, almost like he is showing you two sides of the same person at once. The song is less about shoes than about status, desire, and the way people perform identity when they feel pressure to look untouchable. One of the biggest stories around the track is how deliberately odd it sounded compared with most mainstream R&B in 2016, which helped make Blonde feel instantly different. It also arrived as part of the album's unusual release path, following Endless and the Boys Don't Cry rollout. Ivy. Ivy sounds soft, but it is really about a relationship that has already started breaking apart in the background. Frank lets the emotion stay small and personal, which makes the regret hit harder than if he had sung it louder. The song matters because it captures how first love can feel huge in the moment and still leave behind a lot of damage. A nice detail is that the title works as a simple image for how old memories cling to you, even when you think you have moved on. Pink plus White. Pink plus White has one of the easiest melodies on the album to settle into, but the writing underneath it is full of memory and time passing. Pharrell Williams helped shape the production, and that outside touch gives the track a smoother, more polished feel than some of the more broken-sounding songs around it. It became the most streamed song from Blonde, which makes sense because it is one of the most immediately accessible tracks. The song matters because it turns nostalgia into something calm rather than dramatic, and that gives it a lasting pull. Be Yourself. Be Yourself is a spoken message from a mother named Rosie Watson, and that real voice changes the mood of the album for a moment. The story is simple, a warning against letting drugs and outside pressure control your life. It feels honest because it sounds like advice someone would actually give, not a scripted album interlude. One fun fact is that Frank often uses these small breaks to make the album feel like a real lived-in world instead of just a collection of songs. Solo. Solo is about being alone, but it does not treat loneliness like a clean or noble thing. The song moves with a soft, floating feel, while the lyrics sit in that strange space between independence and emotional emptiness. It matters because it shows how solitude can feel empowering at one moment and isolating the next. The track also helped reinforce Blonde's reputation for making simple ideas feel bigger through arrangement and mood rather than heavy explanation. Skyline 2. The song is brief and understated, but that is part of why it works so well. Frank lets the atmosphere do most of the work, so the listener gets a sense of movement and distance without needing a full story. Blonde uses these shorter tracks to keep the album feeling like a series of moments, instead of a straight line. Self-Control. Self-Control is one of the album's most loved songs because it feels so exposed without ever becoming melodramatic. The track builds slowly, then opens up in a way that makes the emotional shift feel physical. Frank is singing about wanting someone, losing them, and trying not to let that loss swallow him whole. A big part of the song's history is how often fans point to it as one of the clearest examples of Blonde's emotional core. It matters because it sounds like heartbreak that is still happening, not heartbreak after the fact. Good Guy. Good Guy is short, awkward, and very human. It feels like a conversation that starts with hope and ends in a quiet letdown, which is why the track lands so well even though it barely lasts long. Frank uses the small scale of the song to make disappointment feel ordinary instead of theatrical. That choice matters because Blonde keeps showing that not every painful moment needs a huge arrangement to feel real. Nights. Nights is the song where Blonde seems to change gears in front of you. The beat switch is one of the album's best-known moments, and it has become a major talking point because it feels like the record is splitting into two emotional seasons. Frank has said the album was built with memory in mind, and this track captures that idea perfectly by making one song feel like two different periods of life, because the structure itself tells the story of change, not just the lyrics. Solo Reprise. Solo Reprise keeps the loneliness of Solo, but Andre 3000 gives it a different emotional temperature. His performance makes the track feel reflective and a little bruised, like someone looking back after the fact instead of speaking from the middle of the pain, because it expands the album's emotional range without breaking its quiet tone. The track also helps Blonde feel collaborative in a subtle way, even though Frank is the center of the record. Pretty Sweet. Pretty Sweet is one of the album's most off-balance songs, and that strange feeling is exactly what it is going for. The arrangement keeps shifting, so the track feels unstable in a way that mirrors the emotional uncertainty underneath it. It is less about telling a clear story and more about creating a mood that feels tense and attractive at the same time, because Blonde often makes discomfort sound beautiful, and this song is a strong example of that. Facebook Story. Facebook Story is a tiny slice of social drama turned into an album moment. It takes a petty, modern misunderstanding and gives it the same weight as the bigger emotional songs around it. That is part of the fun, because the track shows how something as small as a Facebook request can reveal jealousy, insecurity, and pride. It matters because it keeps the album grounded in everyday behavior, not just abstract feeling. Close to You. Close to You is a short cover that adds a very plain kind of yearning to the album. Frank's version keeps the emotion direct, and that directness makes it stand out among all the more layered tracks. It matters because the album often hides its feelings inside atmosphere, but this song lets the feeling sit right on the surface. In a record full of change and distance, that simplicity is a welcome pause. White Ferrari. White Ferrari sounds like a memory you are trying not to disturb. The song is gentle, but the feeling underneath it is heavy because it deals with love that has already become fragile and far away. Frank Ocean has a way of making tenderness feel sad without making it loud, and this track is one of the best examples of that because it turns loss into something soft enough to hold, which is part of why listeners keep coming back to it. Seyfried. Seyfried feels like Frank Ocean asking what kind of person he has become, and not liking how hard the answer is to find. The song is spacious and thoughtful, which makes it feel like a long, internal conversation. Its title gives it a mythic edge, but the emotion stays grounded in real doubt and self-reflection, because it pushes Blonde past relationship songs and into something more personal about identity and adulthood. Godspeed. Godspeed works like a blessing and a goodbye at the same time. Frank does not force a big emotional reveal here. Instead, he lets the song feel calm, careful, and open-hearted. That restraint is one reason people remember it so clearly, because the track shows that closure does not always sound final, and sometimes the kindest ending is the quietest one. Futura Free. Futura Free closes the album by feeling loose, reflective, and a little unresolved, which fits Blonde better than a neat ending would have. Frank looks back on his life and success without turning the track into a speech, and that keeps it honest, because the album's final move is to leave you with motion instead of certainty. That is a fitting end for a project that was recorded across different cities, released in a famously unusual way, and built to feel like memory rather than a straight biography. That's the end of this video. After subscribing, drop your favorite song from Frank's masterpiece Blonde in the comments below. Till next time!